Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast where we look to reassure you that football is fixable. Alright. Hello Sess, alright?
Alright.
You're becoming more and more like Jason Statham, you know that?
Thanks very much. Handsome. Yeah.
Rugged.
Yeah. That's what people say about me, rugged. Yeah.
There he is, yeah.
If anyone knows me, that's what they think.
Oh yeah, very much so, yeah.
He looks like Jason Statham.
Anyway, it was great having the Prem back last week, wasn't it?
No, not really.
No? Oh,
No.
oh yeah, Everton.
Yeah, couldn't get less. Yeah. Don't really watch football anymore.
Sorry about that. Yeah, your last few fixtures, man. You could have won so many more, well, at least 2 more games.
Yeah, we keep finding different ways to be winning 2-0 and lose 3-2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that phrase? You're clutching defeat from the jaws of victory.
yeah, we really are. Yeah.
Well, there was a new record last week, so getting into the news. Southampton have joined a dreaded top 5.
Okay.
Do you know what that is? This is very ominous now.
Most games without doing well.
Doing well. Very well. Very scientific of you.
Yeah.
So, basically, most defeats in Premier League history.
Ah.
So, yeah, Southampton lost, and then now that puts them in the top 5.
Yeah.
Most losses.
Most defeated.
Or the bottom 5? Or whatever it is. You know.
Yeah.
So, the most defeated teams in Premier League history. So Southampton are now 5th place in that list.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on what the other 4 might be?
Everton's probably got to be in there, I reckon.
They are.
Yeah.
I'll let you know the position in a minute. Any other thoughts? You would probably think, there's teams that have been in the Prem for quite a long time, maybe.
Yeah, maybe West Ham.
Correct.
Oh,
they're in there. Nice.
Palace? Crystal Palace?
You'd think, actually, that's a good shout, but no, they're not in there.
Oh, okay. I don't think any of the top teams, even though they've been in the Prem since the beginning, I can't see them losing enough, maybe.
Yeah. Actually, you'd think Palace probably more because they've had a few relegation scraps and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But actually, Newcastle and Villa are the other 2.
Yeah, that makes sense. Both of them got relegated as well.
Oh, yeah, they did, yeah. So, and they've been in the Prem for a long time. So, although we look at them in maybe the top half of the league now, the last few seasons, but yeah, they're in there. So, it's Southampton with 399 defeats.
Wow.
Newcastle with 407, Villa with 412. Notice I haven't said Everton yet. West Ham with 444. So Everton have lost more than anyone else, 451 times.
I mean, to be fair to Everton, with Newcastle and Villa, they were relegated. They didn't play in as many seasons in the top flight as Everton has. So
yeah, fair point.
I would say they'd probably be similar if you averaged the number of seasons.
Everton are the best worst team, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We used to be the worst best, and now we're the best worst.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Anyway, in other news, there's been some news that has shaken the world of football.
This has outraged me. And
actually,
this.
You were so angry on this one, so we have to bring this one up. What happened, Seth?
Right. So, Rodri, we've given him his flowers before. We said, I've said he is the best in the world. I think you at least agreed that he's one
kind
of
of
the
agree.
best.
In terms of importance to a team, and he should be in the running for this Ballon d'Or as well.
Yeah, so he's decided to come out and say that the players are close to striking because of the number of games being played. They're being overplayed, fatigue. Alisson also came out and said something similar as well.
And the goalkeeper,
the ones that don't really run much.
Right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So a lot of games he's standing there. Yeah.
Yeah. If anything, that should mean the refs would be like, "Hang on, we run more than the keepers."
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But it outrages me. There's obviously the blatant argument of you get paid how many hundreds of thousands per week just to play football.
I mean, that's the obvious one, isn't it?
That's the obvious one.
Yeah,
and
ridiculous amounts of money.
That's really the only argument you need, to be honest.
Yeah, that's more than enough.
Yeah.
But we're going to keep going, aren't we?
You and I have played football all of our lives, and at our peak, in our 20s and stuff, we'd happily play 3, sometimes 4 games of football a week. I know it's not 90 minutes on an 11-a-side, but 5-a-side, 6-a-side pitches, you tend to run more, actually.
Yeah, we weren't paid nearly enough.
No, nowhere near enough. In fact, some would say we had to pay to play as well.
And many would, indeed.
Yeah, and we still had a 9-to-5 job as well on top of that.
Yep.
And on top of that, we had to think about our own bills, shopping, cooking, absolutely everything in the world that you need to survive. Whereas them, Rodri, when was the last time he had to solve any kind of life admin.
Yeah, wash his own kit, you know.
Yeah, exactly. They've got kit men there that actually wash the clothes for them.
Cooking their own meals. They've got personal chefs these days.
Yeah, exactly. They've got kit men who do their own kits. People like Gary Lineker, they were saying that they had to take turns in washing their own kit. They could only buy one pair of boots that they would have to look after, whereas
that's like Sunday League for us, isn't it?
Exactly,
We have to do that, and we'd take in turns with them washing the kits and stuff.
Yeah,
as well.
Whereas Rodri, he would just walk into the changing room and his kit is going to be all nicely folded, and everything's there for him.
Yeah,
everything is there for the top flight players to just waltz in and play football.
Yeah, the privilege of the top players. I mean, it's a dream job. Yes, it's pressure. There's lots of things. So a lot of people don't realise, the money they get is ridiculous, but the pressure they're under and to perform and that kind of thing, I get that side of it. To say you're playing too many games, it's crazy. Because I know you've got more you want to talk about.
Yeah.
But I work in education. Think about the people who work in healthcare and stuff like that. The amount of money they get, as we were talking about money there, isn't that a more important role than... entertainment's amazing, but in terms of the role they play, and that's hence why they're on strike, I suppose, a lot, but in terms of the money they get, what I get a month or whatever, or what I get a year isn't anywhere near what Rodri's getting a week.
Yeah. Rodri was saying that they don't get consulted with all these extra games that they're having to play. But I don't really understand what he's talking about, because how would that help in any way? If they say, Rodri, how do you feel about playing 2 extra Champions League games? And he says, no, I don't want to do that. How is that going to change anything at all? And also, they're not being forced to play more games. I just like to... No one's mentioned this on TalkSport, on Sky News, everywhere. No one's mentioned this. Players aren't being forced to play. The clubs are being forced to play. If you want to be in this competition, you need to play these games.
Some would say that's a privilege as well, by the way. You're playing in the Champions League. Oh, no, what more am I going to have? Oh, the punishments.
Then the players are told by the managers to play the game. You don't have to play those games.
Yeah,
if you don't want to.
That's the thing. Rodri's directing his anger at the football, the Premier League, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It needs to be at the manager to say, I need a rest coach.
Yeah. And that's the manager's fault. Even for someone as clever as Pep, if he's overplaying Rodri, then that's Pep's fault.
Yeah.
He's not noticing that Rodri is getting tired. Also, Rodri played in the internationals in the Euros.
Yeah.
And they went right to the end, so they would have played the most games. Again, he chose to play that. He's choosing to play these games. The equivalent is for us in our everyday work, in your teaching and everything, to do overtime on evenings and weekends, and then complain that you're being overworked for your overtime that you've chosen to do.
That's such a good point.
It just makes no sense to me. If you don't want to play, don't play. David Bentley was laughed at years ago when he didn't play for England, but he was refreshed afterwards. Haaland this season, he clearly refreshed with a long break in the summer.
Yeah, Norway not playing in Euros. And thinking back to, we mentioned my favourite player, Bergkamp, Shearer was the same. You think Scholes, a lot of these players, they stopped playing international football a few years earlier to prolong their club playing career. So I think Shearer and Bergkamp, for example, retired around their 30s.
Yeah.
Or at that sort of mark where that gave them another 5-6 years at club level to keep their performances up, managing their own time. So you can make your own independent decisions. Rodri
that's the whole point of so many
about
sports out there are to do with finding a balance. In Formula One, for example, you have this idea that every car is going at its maximum the whole way, and the fastest car, the car with the higher maximum speed, is going to win. That's not true at all. It's all about balance. It's all about trying not to overheat, the fuel efficiency and weight, the softer tires to the harder tires. When can the tires heat up? It's all about finding the balance. And the whole point of a squad in football is so that you can find a balance. Does Rice have to play in a League Cup game against a League Two side? No, he doesn't have to play that. He could have a rest then.
Yeah.
Does he have to play in a Champions League game in the quarterfinal? Probably, yeah. So find a balance. Yeah. That's all about managing. It's got nothing to do with players being forced to play. They completely have the right to go to the manager and say, I'm being overplayed. I'm going to burn out if you keep playing me.
Yeah.
And all of this comes down to money. We know this because we mentioned it at the start. It's all down to money.
Yeah.
If they're wanting to be paid these extortionate wages, then the clubs have to find ways to make the money, because if you look at Everton, for example, a couple of seasons ago, what was it? 95% of the revenue went to the players.
Yeah, on salaries. That's crazy, isn't it?
And so if they want to carry on being paid these kind of wages, then the teams will have to find ways to utilize you as an asset to make that money.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to play the games, fine, you're not going to be paid the wages. Then all of a sudden, I'm sure they'll start going, I'm all right.
No, actually, I'll play those. I mean, how many games is it?
If you said to these top players, would you like to play 40 games and not play in the Champions League and be paid 100 grand less, or play 55 games, be in the Champions League, possibly win the trophy, and you'll be paid 100 grand more? Which one would they choose?
Let me think about that one.
Yeah,
can I come back to you on that?
Yeah.
It's playing in those competitions. It is a privilege, especially these top players. They're the ones who they're getting the prestige and all the extra things, like not only the chance of winning extra trophies, but I mean the sponsorships and everything else they get around it.
Yeah.
It's just a privilege for them, So I think it's. And there was a thing after Rodri and this news broke. It on TalkSport they were debating it and everything, and they had with Simon Jordan, they had Danny Murphy, who said that he didn't quite realise how privileged he was until afterwards, and it how detached from normal life, if you like. You're in your own
sense of reality, isn't it?
In a sense, I'm not blaming Rodri for that. Since these footballers, especially at the top level, they've gone through the football system from all the under 7s, 8s, 9s through the reserve teams and through all that kind of thing. They've not really known anything else. So this seems quite intense. But yeah, imagine them sort of turning up and doing a proper day's work somewhere and working the hours that they do with 4 weeks holiday a year and stuff, and the money that you get in response for that, in return for that even. So
especially with a job that you love as well, because I think it's fair to say that almost nobody works in the job that they love, their dream job, from when they're kids. At the age of 3, you weren't thinking you want to be a teacher, whereas footballers at the age of 3 dream of being
it's one
of
the dreams. You might enjoy your job, but that's not something you dream to do.
It's not something you've dreamt of since the age of 3 years old.
We play football to get our heads out of work. Football's a thing I do a couple of times a week to enjoy and to go and
exactly.
And then every day you turn up and you do a couple of hours of training or something like that, and then you go and have your. I mean, what else do they do? The baths and massages and stuff.
Yeah. Oh no.
It's tough.
They have to eat really nice, healthy food cooked by other people.
It's probably a good thing I don't have my own chef. It'd be really nice beans on toast or something.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to improve on your beans on toast.
Do you want this really extravagant? No.
Yeah. No, just Heinz for me, please. Yeah.
Other brands are available.
Yeah.
Heinz is best though.
But also this idea of the lessening the quality of football. So if you don't play your best players all the time, if you utilise the squad, then you're lessening the quality of the overall football. I still don't agree with that, because what you're saying is then, as the moment one of your best players gets injured, well, that's it then. It's lessening the quality of football. Let's cancel the Premier League because De Bruyne is injured. Yeah,
and we're looking at this the wrong way as well. The point in a season of football, it's not a one-off game. A season is to be a test. So the team that comes out on top is meant to be the best team.
Yeah.
So that's the whole squad. That's not just the first team.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's meant to be a test to put you under pressure to these number of games. And that's why we say if you win a league, it's more of a rigorous test than if you win a cup, for example. And this is why I say the Premier League is a tougher thing to win than the Champions League or the FA Cup or something. I
completely agree with that.
Wigan can win the FA Cup. That was brilliant. It was an amazing thing. Leicester can win the FA Cup. It's a great cup to win. I love the FA Cup. But the league is a more rigorous test. It's a tougher thing to win.
And very rarely, if ever, do you see a team winning the league just from their first 11 players.
Exactly. You need to utilise the squad.
You need to use it. Yeah, exactly.
And City shouldn't have any excuse for the teams they've got. Speaking of, really stupid comments, have you heard Gabby Ogbonlahor? I think it's time for Gabby Watch.
Gabby Watch. Hello, Gabby.
All right, say up the Villa. I'm busted.
So Gabby was on TalkSport with Alan Brazil and the Scottish lady.
Oh, yeah.
And they were talking about this topic with what Rodri was saying. And he firstly said that that's the whole idea of having a 25-person squad, so that you utilise the squad. If your team is lesser just because you're having to utilise the squad, then you haven't got a good team.
That sounds perfectly reasonable. That's
perfectly
literally
reasonable.
what we said. He agrees with us.
That's that's actually that's a good fix to the whole situation.
Yeah, we could get him on the podcast if he says more things like that.
Yeah, we could. If he didn't say the next thing.
Oh, right.
So he then said, "I'm with the players. I am.
What?
Too many games."
So he said both.
He said both. Yeah.
So he disagrees with himself.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so what he's saying this time round is too many games. What I don't quite understand is they started talking about how they've got the Club World Cup games, there's 2 extra games in the Champions League. What's this idea that these, not just footballers, we're talking about a small percentage of actual professional footballers, because for the Club World Cup, only 1 team, I think, in the Prem gets to play in that, maybe 2. Same as in the Champions League, not everyone gets to play in that one.
It's the very top elite sides, isn't it?
Only the elite sides also go towards the end of the competition as well.
Yeah.
It's only actually a very tiny percentage of a couple of percent of actual professional footballers that play to that level. And even then, with the Club World Cup, what is Rodri having to play? He's got handcuffs on and he's being
forced to play.
Yeah. Absolutely not. Klopp was famous for not playing the first team in the Club World Cup.
The FA Cup as well. I think, especially until the latter stages, he'd be playing a lot of his youth players in the early stages.
Wenger was always kind of mocked in a sense for always in what was known as the Carling Cup at the time, playing all the youngsters.
Yeah, the reserve team.
Yeah, but that was a great way to introduce youngsters, give them minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great way to utilise a squad.
The squad. And listen, Man City have probably the best or one of the most prestigious squads in a sense. They've got 2 first teams, basically. They've got they're most equipped out of all the clubs to do this.
Yeah.
Another thing I'm angry about with this, when they say, to be fair, Mikel Arteta says this as well for my team, and but it's not right when they say, and we've got to get used to playing 3 games a week. You don't play 3 games a week.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that? I mean, maybe at Christmas or those moments where you suddenly have like a 2-day turnaround or something, but that's like, and Christmas is great, it's special, and it's a one-off kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you play twice a week.
Yeah, maybe some of the top teams might play 3 times once in a season.
Yeah, something
maybe.
Like that's it.
Yeah.
So it's Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. I was like, that's still twice a week, really. Yeah. It's not 3 times a week. So how many games do they actually play, these players?
Well, so I've been looking at this. I took someone like Kenny Dalglish from good 40, 50 years ago as comparison to someone like Rodri. So they'd be the kind of players that would play week in, week out for the biggest of tournaments, basically.
Yeah, the top sides.
Yeah. So Rodri, if we put him into context, he's spent the last, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons playing above 40 games. So 47, 47, 52, 53, 46, 56. It's
okay, right. Yeah.
Mid-40s to mid-50s every year.
Okay.
Kenny Dalglish, 15 seasons of playing 50 games or more.
What?
One time he reached 62. Oh, no, twice he reached 62. He's played significantly more than Rodri, and I looked at this for a number of players, even someone like Steven Gerrard for, in between Dalglish and Rodri's eras, and he's played just as much, if not more, than Rodri
so
as well.
There's this kind of myth that they play more games these days. It's just not true.
It's not true at all.
And the other thing is Dalglish was playing on, mud, basically. Really tough pitches. It was actually on Restor's Football a month or so ago or something, where Michael Richards was saying about the intensity of...
Yeah.
So it's kind of a topic that keeps coming up, it seems.
Yeah.
And Lineker said, hang on a minute, we were playing really intense football on tough pitches, physical challenges as well.
Yeah.
You don't get anywhere near the types of challenges they were getting back then.
Yeah, I heard someone saying once that you're actually more prone to injuries on a nice pitch of grass because with the mud, your knees can take the impact and everything. What a load of garbage that is.
That doesn't sound like a doctor said that.
You can twist your ankle. It doesn't make sense at all. They had the best pitches, best boots, best ball, the sports science, diet, medication, treatment, the massages, the hot-cold treatments, saunas.
Yeah.
Everything is the best it can possibly be now. They've even got 5 subs now that... In the 70s, they had no subs.
Yeah, no, and then it was 1, then 3, and now we've got 5, like you said.
5's like almost half your outfield players can literally go off every game. which they never used to
Don't
be able
forget
to
the
do.
keepers, Allison. He's
He's knackered, isn't he? Yeah, good
he
point.
needs a rest,
Yeah.
So don't forget those keepers.
But it just makes no sense that this is the best time to play your best football and be paid the most.
If you're going to choose to be a footballer in any era, you play now, wouldn't you?
Straight away, yeah.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Well, I think there's another issue solved there, haven't we? We fixed another one already. We haven't
in the news.
Yeah, we haven't even got to our main topic yet.
No, that's true, yeah.
Shall we get into the main topic, Seth?
Let's do this.
Well, today we're going to be looking at the dark arts of football, Seth.
We are. And we have a special guest with us.
Indeed. We have the professor of the dark arts himself. We have Professor Snape.
I'll have no foolish wand waving here.
I'm terribly sorry, Professor.
Yeah, we won't do that again, sorry.
But we're going to use Professor Snape's sort of dark arts specialism and his knowledge to help us kind of dissect the way it's gone to the gutter, hasn't it, Seth?
Yeah.
But firstly, what actually do we mean by the dark arts? So, Professor, what's the definition of dark arts?
The dark arts are many, varied, ever-changing and eternal. Fighting them is like fighting a many-headed monster.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to say, that's how I felt when Joel Veltman got Rice sent off, just before the international break. Rice had to miss the first North London derby of the season. He's such a key player for us.
Yeah.
And all because of some players' kind of really unsporting sort of dark arts, if you want to call it that. He was trying to get him sent off. I don't care. Anyone who knows football understands that the ball wasn't even stood still, it was rolling. So if VAR looked at it and cleared it on the day, they should have, the ball was rolling and he's just gone and lashed Rice, basically. It's a free hit on Rice.
Yeah, just because of that little tap that Rice did, it kind of gave him a free card, a free hit just to absolutely floor Rice.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
And
yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I know that Rice then went down and he was trying to say, like, hey, I've just been kicked, and he did the whole hold my ankle thing. I'm sure he wasn't in that much pain.
Yeah.
But if you look at, there's a reverse angle where you can see Joel Veltman's, where the ball would have been passed to, basically. And there was no one even looking. They were under pressure. I think one of the pundits actually said, there's no reason to take a quick free kick there. He was deliberately trying to get Rice a second yellow card.
Yeah.
And,
which I agree with. However, it was still a second yellow. Don't you think, Professor, that isn't it in the rule book?
Yes. Turn to page 394.
We haven't got time to actually look at all the rules, but one thing I will say, so in the news it came out over the last sort of week or two, the Premier League's independent key match incidents, the KMI in brackets, panel has unanimously supported referee Chris Kavanagh's decision to send off Declan Rice in the 1-1 draw Brighton on the 31st of August. Gary Lineker shared that with the comment, utter nonsense, and a couple of laughing emojis and stuff. And it is just, he's someone, I feel Lineker's actually someone in touch with what football should be.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
It is nonsense. Both players are being muppets.
Yeah.
They need to be just given a word. I think a ref should have been able, I think this is where the rules are too strictly followed now. There's less common sense in football because there's so many rules you just have to follow.
And as we learnt from Graham Souness last week, there are no rules in a game of football.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no rule. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no. Maybe that's not
no, it's wrong.
There is a rule book.
Yeah.
But as with any law, like we said before on a previous episode, I might have been on that previous episode actually, the laws, you need to use them with common sense.
Yeah.
There has to be an interpretation of it. So I can see why the panel might agree with the referee, well, he has every right to send a player. Use a bit of common sense. You ruin the game, and then it's sent a player off for something which is absolutely ridiculous. Veltman gets a yellow card for basically kicking Rice in the... And it's also, what's that showing the young viewers and stuff, that you can manipulate the game? I don't remember this happening 20 years ago. It wasn't as... nowadays, it's kind of applauded.
Yeah, it's also the inconsistency, I think. That's the problem with it, because... There was the João Pedro moment, I think, in the 50th minute or whatever, where he booted the ball away. That should have been given as a yellow. And I think they're trying to come down hard on a lot of the this kind of dark art stuff, but they're coming down hard on the wrong ones, I think.
Yeah.
That those are the kind of things. A red card is kind of like a penalty. It's almost game-changing.
Exactly.
If it's a yellow card, it's not game-changing. It's just one player that'll go, oh, maybe I shouldn't go in on with a two-footed tackle next time. But a red card or a penalty is a game-changing situation. And if that's the case, then you have to be absolutely certain, not just that by the letter of the law you should have been given, you have to be absolutely certain that as a referee you're willing to effectively affect the game yourself. A referee shouldn't be affecting the game.
Exactly.
He should be letting the game flow, and yet you've got to be prepared to do that. And I think in those situations, you could quite easily tell the referee, the referee could quite easily tell the players, no more of that, stop it. That's just ridiculous.
And you know how Veltman sort of manipulated that roll of the ball towards Rice. He rolled it towards Rice so that he could do that as well.
Yeah.
If you did, imagine the ball wasn't there and you just kick a player. It's a straight red. But he's managed to use the situation, manipulate it to get he got a yellow.
Yeah.
You know, he just went and kicked Rice. It's just bonkers. It's just absolutely mad. So these dark arts, I'm sorry, Professor, but I don't want dark arts in football, I'm afraid.
No, but one of the dark arts I do want to mention, and we mentioned this a few times before, and we keep trying to fix it, but the world just won't accept it, is the diving. It's so easy. It's such an easy thing to see because we've said this before, natural angles, your natural movement of your body is so easy to see when it's not natural. If you're falling down, you put your hands down to stop your fall.
Yeah, to try and cover yourself, protect yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. How many times do we see week in, week out, or to be honest, every game
Several
now,
times.
Several times every game. Yeah. When they get kicked on the leg, their arms go up in the air. What you're doing when your arms go up in the air is try and make yourself big in order to try and emphasize an exaggeration.
You're exaggerating. It's dramatizing it.
Yeah. And so it's just this ridiculous, almost as though they've been shot by a sniper or something and they roll on the ground. And we always joke, don't we? Make sure you roll 6 times, otherwise they won't be given a yellow card.
People have put like memes together of like sniper films, with, and there's players just diving to the floor and stuff. And I remember that moment, it was before VAR, but I remember sending you a clip of it with Bruno Fernandes, and it's not just me picking on him. Loads of players have done this.
That was against Fulham or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, or Leicester or something like that.
Yeah.
And I had to put, because this way you can pause and rewind on the TV or whatever. And I said, I've got to send this over. This is just he feigns injury. And then he's on the floor holding his ankle or whatever. But then the ball gets passed to him, so he quickly jumps up, gets the ball, runs past the player, and the most worrying thing is no one really was bothered about it. The ref didn't have a word with him, as far as you could see. There was no boos from the crowd. I don't want to encourage, a lot of toxic sort of reactions or anything, but in terms of that should not be condoned. It needs to be challenged. Whether it needs to be picked up, whether during the game or retrospectively.
Yes,
it needs to be. It needs to be. Hopefully not posthumously. Anyway, but retrospectively, they need to go back and say, look, we're gonna keep a record of this, and you'll get yellow cards, the equivalent to, even if you're not playing.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't heard last season's diving episode that we had, that was one of our fixes, was to give a retrospective yellow card, in which case every game you're going to have so many yellow cards, and then some will end up being red cards, and it'll be crazy at the beginning, but then by the second week, guaranteed, every manager will say, stop it, everyone stop now, because you cannot get away with it.
Yeah, and we can't afford to lose any more players. We need you to play for us, and we need to get out of the game. If it takes a few weeks or whatever, but they do it. They go hard for a week or two, don't they? And then they'll
forget about it. Yeah, that's the problem, because there's no consistency. And I don't care how many people say, oh no, they're doing a lot better now with you can't talk to the referees unless you're manager. No, the last game that we saw, I can't remember which game it was, but they were surrounding the referee.
Yeah.
No one got a yellow card.
And you were saying, weren't you? And I think because John was here with us, and we said, just book them now. Just book that one. Book that one.
Yellow. Yeah,
exactly.
And it just doesn't happen. We actually said this. This would be brilliant to look back on. We said on a podcast, on an episode, that we said something like, we'll give it 6 months. Something like that. And it probably wasn't even 6 months before they gave up.
It often is within a couple of weeks, because then there's oh no, the ref's too tough, and they need this to get their respect back.
Yeah, it's the only sport. I mean, even with tennis, for example, some of them shout at the umpire, then they get punished, and they go, well, there's no getting away with it then.
Yeah.
in football, they're not getting punished. How crazy is that?
There's always
punished.
Exactly. There's going to be emotional reactions, but punish it, and it will minimise the number of times that's going to happen.
Yeah, and with the diving as well, there's always going to be divers, and we can retrospectively give them yellow cards and all these things. There will usually be divers anyway because they somehow want to exaggerate, be the victims. The problem I have is that commentators don't even mention it now. When it happens, and
that's such a good point. The commentators should actually be able to laugh at it or point it out or something. So at least then it adds another way that we can challenge it. You know?
We immediately say, don't we? Well, that was a dive. That was a clear dive.
Yeah, you can
don't even need to
straight
see
away.
the replay, and then we see the replay and go, yeah, it was a complete dive.
Yeah, occasionally you might get things wrong. I get it, but sometimes the commentators and pundits on will say, "Oh, he's exaggerated that there" or something. Just call it what it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's dived there. That's
And it's almost as though they're scared to say anything, and before they say anything about it, they want to look at the replay and try to justify that it was a free kick. If a free kick was given, they'll go, "Oh yeah, well a shoelace was touched there."
Yeah. They'll say, "Oh, he's gone down easy, but you can see there was contact."
Yeah, he was near that guy's aura. So
it's shocking. So it needs to be called up. So there needs to be a panel afterwards that's punishing this stuff.
When we were growing up, there were some hard challenges, weren't there? There were definite divers. We knew the divers then, the Ronaldos of the time. They were diving.
Yeah.
However, they would still have some strong challenges on them, and quite often they would just carry on running. Even to Ronaldo's credit, a lot of the times Ronaldo would have a heavy challenge on him, and he would keep going.
Yeah.
Whereas now, you don't really know. Even people like Saka, that we think is a genuinely nice lad, and he looks after himself, and is a great model human being. He's becoming a diver now.
Yeah, he is. I'll admit, I love him to bits. He's a star boy and everything, but he has started to go down easier. I think I might have said this before, but I think part of the problem was he was fouled a lot, and the ref wouldn't give anything. Yeah. So it comes down again to the standard of the refs, you might say. They need to be able to spot what is a foul and what isn't.
Yeah.
But the players stopped diving. There was that time in the Champions League last season, wasn't there, when Saka could have gone past Neuer. You think, just run past him. But what he thought, that's a definite penalty. I'll just make contact and then...
Yeah, it's so frustrating because even the players that we love are starting to do it. And it's... Well, I say starting to do it, they all do it now. It's just the norm. Yeah. It's become unusual if you have a player that doesn't dive.
That's the difference. When we talk about that ideal time, I know we're sounding really old now, but that ideal time, like 20 years ago, the early 2000s, when we had the technical but also the physical and all of that right mix, it would be you might have one player in a team that was the notable diver or something. Now it's the reverse, isn't it? Now there's one player who's the innocent one, but even then they might go... again, I'm calling Arsenal out. Love Rice to bits, but he did roll around the floor a bit when Veltman kicked him.
Yeah.
He's trying to exaggerate to the ref to call it over, and in a way, he drew attention to something which he, in hindsight, didn't want to do. But it was still a poor decision from the ref, in my opinion. But Rice didn't really help the case by rolling around. Then Rice stands up. So even that, Rice is he's a hard man in a way. He gets stuck into loads of challenges. I love that about him. But every player needs to stop rolling around. Yeah,
and football actually gets a bad rep from the rest of the world that doesn't watch football.
And I hate that.
Yeah,
yeah,
do I, because it's something that it's all people know really that don't watch football, and quite rightly, football gets mocked for it because I would mock it as well. We do mock it.
Yeah, exactly.
When we watch football.
I get criticised, but I say, "Oh no, I can't watch." By rugby fans, for example, or the players diving around. And it is a bit embarrassing. You can't just football is a beautiful game, and it'd be even more beautiful once we finish with it. But it's kind of embarrassing.
It's so unique as well, just a bit more unique than others, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's football. So to keep it beautiful, we have to try and get this out of the game, and that's what we're here for, and that's why we're calling this out.
Yeah, and I've always said I think most people compare football with rugby. There's this idea, this myth that somehow they're very similar sports, when they're actually not. Just because they play on a similar size pitch with a single ball and there's two teams, there's this idea, they're the same kind of things. Yeah. No, they're not. They haven't even got the same length time for a game. It's very different.
Yeah.
And the reason why there's diving in football but there's no diving in rugby is because in football you are rewarded for your diving. You're not rewarded for diving in rugby. Even if you get hit really hard and you go down and you're injured, your kneecap is blown off, they carry on playing. They'll run around you. Only with a head injury would they consider stopping if they're going to end up running over the guy. And so there's no benefit in stopping. Whereas in football, if if you get hit on your shoelace and you hold your head, you get rewarded with a penalty or a free kick. No wonder we'd start doing that if we realise that we can win games just by going down easily. And that's the fault, again, of the referees, the refereeing standard. We've always said the refereeing standard's going down and down and down. VAR's not helping with it. There's no retrospective yellow cards at all. Commentators are just accepting it. All the pundits, everyone, Match of the Day, all of them, they all just accept that this is part of the game.
Now it's just in the game.
Don't accept it. It's not part of the game. Why have we accepted a minimum standard that everyone dives? And now that shouldn't be a minimum standard.
And now the rules are now trying to cover themselves. So, well, just in case he's feigning injury, we'll make a rule up so they have to go off the pitch. No, just point it out as it is. We don't have to do all the, you have to go off the pitch for 30 seconds and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Which leads us on to another bit of the dark arts, and that's time wasting, because you have to go off the pitch if you're diving now, don't you?
Yeah.
But there's a lot better fixes than that.
Oh, it's one of those things that they seem to want to find a solution outside of any other sport.
Yeah, I know you go on about this, but I do agree with you on this one.
If the game isn't being played for some reason, because, you know, the ball's off the pitch, there's someone injured or something, the game isn't being played, so they stop the clock. Why would you carry the clock going and then the ref will go, it's all right, I'll add about 5 minutes at the end, whatever.
Yeah,
because all you have to do then is time waste in those 5 minutes, and they don't add any time on then.
Yeah. In a way, I know it had a lot of abuse given to it and stuff. I think it came in last season about adding on 9, 10, 12 minutes on and stuff like that. We've seen a lot more goals during that time. I quite like it in that sense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not solving the bigger problem.
No,
like you said.
No. And those are the kind of things, they would have been goals usually in the 75th, 80th minute anyway. But we just, for some reason, just carried the game on.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem I have with adding time on, it's not adding time on. Because if they say, well, we'll add 5 minutes on, well, they don't add any more after that. So in those 5 minutes, you can just feign an injury. You can do substitutions.
And slow the game down. That's
yeah.
That's the other thing. The momentum's lost.
Yeah, completely.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Just by adding time on doesn't solve a lot of the bigger problems associated with it.
Yeah, whereas if you stop the clock, if someone goes down pretending to be injured, fine, I'll stop the clock. There's absolutely no benefit in you staying down. All that'll happen is, if you say a rule like, if the clock is stopped, whoever is injured at the time has to go off.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it's a head injury or not. They can't suddenly go, oh no, because at the moment, they only go off the pitch if they get medical help, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so all they do is they stay down for a minute, and they've clearly been told, the medics, don't go on until about a minute later, and then there's some sort of signal and then go on. So all the players do is they stay for as long as they can until the ref's told, right, we're bringing the medic on. They'll go, oh no, I'm fine actually. So instead of that, you could just say, fine, I'm stopping the clock, which means now you have to go off for a minute.
Yeah, no,
all
exactly
of a sudden, people are going to stop going
no,
down.
hang on. Yeah. And there's times, and even, again, my beloved Arsenal, I've seen them do it. Like Martinelli did it a couple of seasons ago, where you get injured and you're off the pitch, but then you roll back onto the pitch, so the referee has to stop. This is dark arts. This is what we're talking about.
Mbappe did in the Euros when he broke his nose.
Yeah, exactly. And then you roll back onto the pitch, so the referee is then obliged to have to stop it, because especially if it's a broken nose or something like that. And then there's other moments when players will go down injured, and the referee's meant to stop because of a head injury, and the referee will let the game play on if it isn't a head injury. Yeah. But then if the player stays down for more than, say, 20 seconds, the ref often stops the game anyway.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
Or because of this like gentlemanly rule that the player has to kick the ball off.
Yeah, but they're not being gentlemanly by cheating, basically. That's
exactly,
often it is. It's not always, but often it can be cheating. And now the refs are in a position where they have to judge, okay, is he being honest or is he not?
Yeah. And that's the problem I have, is that there are simple ways around this. The things that I've mentioned before, the solutions, they're actually very simple. And they're things that you don't have to be a super smart person with a podcast to be able to solve.
You don't need specialists, necessarily.
No, exactly. They're very obvious things, but it just feels like the people high up in football just go, no, we can't do that because it sounds like a very rugby rule. We can't do that. We've got to find a new rule. We'll add a new rule onto our rules. That's why we said with the handball rule, it's not just one simple handball rule.
It's pages now, isn't it?
Yeah, bullet point after bullet point, because they're clearly adding on, oh yeah, but in this case you have to do this, unless it's this. But then if this happens,
then oh wait, that's going to cause another problem. So we need to then another rule to kind of mitigate
it's
that.
Rules
one.
on rules.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous.
I know, in a way, they're not helping the refs. I know we said this before. The refs standards we've questioned, and there's ways we need to improve that. But by making all of these complex rules, it takes human judgment, common sense out of it.
Yeah, you'll soon have managers like Pep, like Arteta, like Ten Hag. These managers will, at half time, they'll bring the players in and they'll go, right, you've just dived, you're going to get a retrospective yellow card, you're going to be banned for the next game. You are not doing that again. None of you are doing that again. Yeah. Anyone that does that, you're going to be subbed. Especially with someone like Ten Hag, because he's had a lot of players that are known for diving. You've got people like Anthony. He's had Ronaldo in the team. Sancho was quite bad at it.
And as I say, Bruno,
Rashford as well, actually, to be honest.
Well, it's in every team, but yeah, you're right. It's pretty much every player these days.
Yeah, and it's rife in United because at the moment nothing's going right with United. So
yeah. Speaking about Ten Hag, Professor, something we mentioned on our news segment in a recent episode was that how he said he's not Harry Potter.
Obviously.
Oh, okay, right.
Although we shouldn't say too much about Ten Hag because he looks a little bit too much like you-know-who. Ah, yes, the Dark Lord himself.
Now, though, it's time for John's Juicy Tips. Juicy.
Rock hard tips.
John's Juicy Tips.
Yeah.
Alright, here's some more zingers to make you a winner. There's a bit of a fixture swing this week, giving Arsenal and Brentford some great fixtures coming up, so look at those teams. As always, I'll give you one defender, one midfielder and one striker to look at for your FPL. In defence, it's Gabriel for Arsenal. Arsenal have home games against Leicester and Southampton in the next 2 game weeks. And did you know that Gabriel has scored the most Premier League goals for a defender since his debut in 2020? In midfield, it's Brian Mbeumo for Brentford. He's got 4 goals in 5 games, and 3 out of his next 4 fixtures are home games against bottom half teams. Plus, with Visser out, he really is the main man for Brentford. And up front, it's the Southwest's finest goal machine, Ollie Watkins. He's found his scoring boots again, and we know from last year that once he's found them, he doesn't lose them. Juicy.
Thanks for that, John, as always, and thank you, Professor Snape, for joining us on the episode. Have you enjoyed yourself?
No.
Oh, have you not really...
Silence.
Okay, well...
Sorry, Professor.
Thank you, Cess. I don't think we should have him back.
No, a little bit too dangerous.
Who's that coming in from the? He looks like Ten Hag. Hold on a minute.
Is that you-know-who?
Oh no. Well, I suppose it's a goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me. Avada Kedavra!